Okay. Hey, everyone. And thank you for joining us for today's webcast, DAM and Digital Preservation Systems, a new partnership to address preservation and presentation of your digital collections. This is presented by Preservica, AM Cortex, and Library Journal. I'm Joshua Bean, webcast manager for Library Journal, and I will be your moderator. And we'll get started with the presentation in just a moment. But first, let's go over our housekeeping. So the layout of your screen is completely customizable, and you can resize any of the windows and move them around. So feel free to adjust them as needed. If you close any of the windows, you can bring them back up by clicking on the appropriate button in the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to chat with your fellow attendees during the webcast, we encourage you to do that using the attendee chat window. But if you have any questions for the presenters during the webcast, be sure to submit your questions through the Q&A window. And you can drop those in there at any time, and we will do our best to address them near the end of the webcast after the presentation. If you want to download a copy of the slide deck, you can find that, as well as some resource links in the resource list window. And if you'd like to get your continuing education certificate, you can find that over in the certification window, and you can get that once you've met the viewing requirements. If you'd like to share this event on social media, you can do that using the hashtag LJ Preservica AM Cortex, and be sure to tag us at Library Journal if you do that. If you have any technical difficulties, you can click on the help widget where you can find the system requirements and the FAQs. Usually just refreshing the page on your internet browser will reload it and fix most of the glitches that sometimes happen with this webinar platform. But if not, you can send me a note through the Q&A window, and I'll try to help you out. Awesome. Okay, with that out of the way, I'm going to hand things over to Katie Gambone from Preservica to get things started.
Great.
Take it away, Katie.
Thank you, Joshua. Hello, and thank you to everyone joining us for today's webinar. I want to start by wishing everyone a happy Archives Month. Preservica and AM Cortex are proud supporters and collaborators with the library and archives community, and we celebrate the work you do. We are very pleased to be working with the Library Journal to bring you today's session. I'd like to also thank Preservica's partners at Amazon Web Services, a sponsor of today's webinar. As a partner of AWS, Preservica leverages the flexibility, agility, and security that AWS offers for our customers' digital preservation initiatives. And the AM Cortex Digital Asset Management solution is also hosted on AWS. My name, again, is Katie Gambone, and I am Preservica's Channel Marketing and Business Development Manager. I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves as well, starting with Mike.
Hi, my name is Mike Davis, and I am a Senior Solutions Architect here at Preservica.
Thanks, Mike, and I'm Martin Drew. I kicked off launch of the Cortex software in 2017 and work as Head of Customer Experience at AM Cortex.
Hey, and my name's Rich. I'm a Product Manager at AM, so I'm part of the Cortex development team.
Great. So today's session will last an hour, and we do have a lot to cover. We're going to start out by talking about a need identified in the market for a holistic solution to support both digital preservation and digital asset management and curation for digitized and born digital collections. From there, we'll introduce you to Preservica and AM Cortex and give you a demonstration of how our systems can work together to support the full content lifecycle. And then we'll try to leave as much time at the end as possible for Q&A, but please feel free to submit questions as you have them as well. Okay, so let's begin by talking about the needs identified in the market and why we believe a partnered solution can help. In the resources tab on your webinar portal, we've included links to 2 articles that we believe succinctly highlight the need for a holistic solution to support digital collections. So the first blog authored by Cassandra George, a digital collections manager librarian at Case Western Reserve University, and published by Choice, which is a publishing unit of ACRL, articulates the differences between digital preservation and digital collections management. So digital preservation, roughly defined as the long-term care for digitized and born digital files so they are accessible 20 or 200 years from now. And then digital collections management, which is more of a curatorial role and really a great opportunity to showcase and make accessible a wide variety of assets within a broader historical context for researchers. So not only are these two areas of digital collections care different, but they also require specific and distinct workflows and capabilities, and they have recommended best practices. The second link is then an article published by AVP's Amy Rudersdorf on the AVP website. This article highlights a gap in the marketplace for a system that does both digital preservation and digital asset management and curation holistically. There are some DAM systems that may also offer digital preservation capabilities on the market, but they often do not address one of the core digital preservation requirements of format migration, which means those collections can still be at risk. The sentiments reflected in these articles really mirror the conversations that Preservica and AM Cortex have with you, the library and archives community. So Preservica, a digital preservation system, is sometimes asked about our DAM capabilities, and Cortex, a DAM provider, is often asked about their digital preservation capabilities. What's true is each of our platforms is uniquely designed to support the core competencies we are talking about today. So for Preservica, that's digital preservation, and for Cortex, that's digital asset management and curation. So libraries and repositories that have been looking for a single system to do both of those things may have had to compromise on the functionality that's been available to you. But we're hoping that through this partnership between Preservica and AM Cortex, we're looking to address that need and provide you with a unified solution where compromising on functionality shouldn't be necessary. We have articulated the focus of our work together through this joint value proposition. So in essence, we're partnering to hopefully fill a gap in the market for digital collections managers that are working on these two distinct areas of digital collections management. The first being digital preservation, including the long-term care and conversion of digitized and born digital assets in well over 2,000 file formats. And the second being digital curation for public-facing assets that enhances that research experience and allows for a deeper understanding of assets within a broader historical context. By partnering, we're hoping to provide you with two best-in-class SaaS cloud-based solutions that are going to give you advanced functionality, but simple workflows and a holistic, well-rounded digital ecosystem. We've received these requests for a paired-up solution from our customers too. So they are also providing us with helpful feedback about how the integration could best serve their needs. One of those customers is the University of Liverpool, and I'll just quickly play a video testimonial from Joanne Fitton, the Deputy Director of Libraries, Museums, and Galleries.
Hi everyone, my name's Joanne Fitton and I've been asked to talk briefly about the work being undertaken at the University of Liverpool Libraries, Museums and Galleries to bring about a digital shift in activities and services. I joined as Deputy Director in late 2022 and the university has significant heritage and cultural assets with very poor visibility. The teams caring for collections and making them accessible are small and there's limited system support or expertise in-house. And there have been discussions without much progress for a long time about needing a system for digital preservation, particularly focused on born digital archives. But alongside this, libraries, museums and galleries have struggled to create digitised content or make it accessible. We wanted to move quickly and make the case for investment in our digital infrastructure, in our capabilities and capacities. And to do this, I felt it was important to invest in robust, trusted systems that came with solid development roadmaps with a shared vision for content creation, preservation, access and reuse. I'd worked with Adam Matthews in my previous roles in the creation of resources using primary sources and was aware of the Cortex system. Features in the system were very attractive to me: the ability to transcribe records, the ability to create timelines and integrate other systems and display maps, and the discovery layer. The system had been designed with the use of primary sources at the core, creating resources that link to the curriculum and are attractive packages for research libraries. It felt like a space where we could experiment with digital curation and create our own packages of resources. And I was aware of Preservica. In particular, it's used by many local authority archives who wanted an off-the-shelf solution to digital preservation of assets. Digital preservation was a struggle in my last organisation, relying on in-house developer time and hitting many bottlenecks over a number of years. Taking on Preservica would be a quick win, and it would put the minds of key stakeholders and donors at ease and support the work and development of the team, working with multiple formats of material. I was particularly attracted to learn that the two systems planned integrations on their roadmap. It felt like this would mean we could build efficient workflows from the outset, particularly as we begin to systematically digitise large parts of our collections. Collections won't be at risk, and we can create a good user end experience. This opens up many opportunities for development, considering how we support digital projects led by our academic community, providing a safety net for at-risk digital outputs, and it helps us to consider our commitments to the wider community outside the university and how we can tell their stories and showcase our collections collaboratively. Thank you.
I'd also invite you to read the article in your Learning Resources tab, again, which is published by Syracuse University, where they also highlight how their digital ecosystem works together. So we are always looking for feedback from customers to ensure that the integration is meeting their needs. So we invite you to join us in that conversation after today's webinar is complete. All right, so Preservica and AM Cortex are uniquely positioned to offer this partnered solution. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Preservica, our mission is simple. It is to protect the world's cultural, economic, social, and political memory. More and more digitized and born digital assets are created each day, and without intervention and proper care, they will be lost to time. They are just as at risk as physical collections due to the rapid pace of technology advancements. Simply put, digital preservation is different from archival methods that just store the data safely. Active digital preservation brings information forward over time, moving files from old formats to current formats, ensuring that it remains readable. Preservica's digital preservation system ensures nothing is lost during transitions through fidelity and fixity of data conversions, and keeps all of the original files alongside a full audit trail of preservation actions. Preservica is an international standard for Open Archival Information System, or OAIS. This diagram is just an example of a workflow of an OAIS. It has standards to ensure that digital materials are properly preserved and protected, and OAIS is dedicated to keeping those assets, again, just safe and readable. And we've been doing this work for well over a decade, and we support a growing and diverse community of international libraries and repositories, including corporate and business archives, academic libraries, museums, government libraries, and many more. Today, Preservica proudly works with over 3,500 customers to host and digitally preserve their high-value, long-term information, which totals more than 350 million assets. And with that, I'll turn it over to Martin to introduce you to AM Cortex.
Thank you, Katie. I'm just going to as Katie said, introduce a little bit about AM and Cortex. I know many people on this webinar will know Adam Matthew, which is what AM as a company was formerly known as. And many will also come across Cortex. But in brief, AM is a publisher of digital primary source collections. And we've been doing this for over 20 years now, working with institutions all over the world. So we have a lot of experience of curating and presenting these collections, and we've won numerous awards for the work we do as well. More details on AM and on our collections, as well as information about Cortex, can be found by exploring the links we give at the end of the webinar. So Cortex itself is our next generation software, and it's the platform on which all new AM collections are published. It's also the first iteration of our software that we've licensed for use by external parties. It was created with the input and the experience of our team of engineers and our editorial team, and it was developed with ease of use in mind. As you'd expect, Cortex offers advanced asset management functionality, some of which is detailed by Rich in a moment. But Cortex also has a built-in content management system, which allows for the creation of websites to showcase and add context to digital collections. So these sites have highly configurable branding and styling options, and the page creation and design in Cortex is very simple. In addition, you can publish multiple websites using the same Cortex instance, and this can represent great value. Again, we'll touch on all this when Rich does an in-depth demo a little later. Finally, before we leave this slide, a word on the support we offer Cortex users. We try to fully understand the objectives of everyone who's using our software, and these objectives can vary quite widely, and this is in order that we can help them meet their goals. So support until live implementation of a website is unlimited, and all customers have access to the Cortex community platform. And this is where they find our knowledge base, support videos. It's where they can communicate direct with us and with other users of Cortex. So we launched Cortex a few years ago, and we currently have about 50 organizations using the platform. A small sample is shown here. Institutional users range from large state libraries and research universities such as Rice or Baylor or Syracuse, showcased here, with relatively large library teams working on digitization and migration projects. But we also have smaller customers. We have museums, public libraries, or cultural heritage institutions. We've got the Globe listed here. That might have a single archivist working on cataloging or on collection display or on exhibition creation, for example, all using the Cortex software. So in terms of implementing an integration between Preservica and Cortex, this will of course allow access to all the functionality of both products, many of which we list on this slide for reference, and which we'll dig into in a minute. It will also combine secure and cost-effective preservation across multiple file formats with intuitive asset management and effective front-end display and search functionality. But importantly, you should not only be confident that your files are both preserved and easily discoverable, you should find that you save time and resources through the workflows enabled by this integration. So we aim to present a visualization of these workflows in this following slide. And Katie's going to kick this off.
Yeah, great. So as Martin said, here we've created a visual representation of what the Preservica and AM Cortex integration will look like. And we've tried to illustrate how information can flow and then be used across the two systems. So I'll just explain high level. With the integration, Preservica would serve as more an administrative or internal facing system to digitally preserve your collections. And in Preservica, you may be ingesting a wide variety of formats, as well as you may be getting content from multiple departments across your organization or across your campus that is, again, high value and requires that long-term care. Within that broader scope, some of that content in Preservica you may wish to simply keep restricted and protected, but you also likely have a selection of assets that you may wish to manage, describe, and curate into a public-facing portal, which then can be supported by AM Cortex, which we see here on the right. While the flow of information will mostly be between our two systems, the arrows on the diagram highlight that both Preservica and AM Cortex also offer additional APIs to push your content to other systems as well. So as Martin said, we've recorded a demo to give you a sneak peek at our functionality and also to provide you with more detail about each of the steps in the workflow we have here. So we'll start with the first two steps in the process. In this case, all of your content, again, would be ingest into Preservica. From there, as a step 2, Preservica will generate derivatives for more regular access or for you to push to your public-facing digital asset management portal with AM Cortex. Those derivatives produced in Preservica will be optimized for web publication. So let's take a look at what those first two steps look like in Preservica.
Okay, so this is a section where we're going to talk about how we do various kinds of ingest within Preservica. So let's actually get into the product. So this is the standard UI. This is where we do all of the regular ingest, work with metadata, things like that. And what you see here is the expert UI. So we'll go to both. But let's start in the expert UI first and just show you that, we in Preservica can work with, know about, and manage over 2,300 file types here. And why does that matter to you? Because, now more than ever, between what's being digitized or has been digitized and what's born digital, the types of files are ever expanding. And it's not enough just to know those last 3 characters at the end. You need to really be able to work with it. So why is that significant? Well, for example, a PDF. If I say PDF, that's not just a single type of document. You can see in our system alone, we know about 40 different file formats that end in PDF. You have all these different traditional PDF file formats, you have PDFAs, you have PDFEs, you have PDFXs, and you can see there are multiple different software companies that make PDFs that we need to be able to know about and understand so that we can do things such as migrate, normalize, and most importantly, render moving forward. And so that's one of the really important parts about digital preservation, and in this case, active digital preservation, is when we do that ingest and do a characterization, we have all the information we need to be able to work with that document moving forward, and that's something we store in our database moving forward. All right, so now let's talk about how easy it is to get content into our system. So let's go into our galleries of libraries and museums. And let's go find our library of journal demo. And let's just see how easy it is to add content. So I'm going to take a folder. And I'm just going to show you how easy this is. I'm going to take this PDF and I'm just going to drag and drop it. And you can see as I drag and drop it, that we're going through the process of not only uploading it, but preserving it. So you can see we're going to do all of those steps of integrity checking it, virus checking it, characterizing it, creating a structure where it's going to sit within the organization. And then if it requires active digital preservation, that last step is creating that active digital preservation structure. And we'll look at that in the next section of what that means. And there you go. It's been brought in. Now, it's important to note that when I ingest it, we want to set it up with a proper security tag. So we'll show you that real quick. So here's the file that I ingested. And you can see that in this case, I have put it into a folder that's public. But maybe what I really want to do is bring it into a restricted folder. Okay, so now when I look at that security, when I look at that asset, I can easily change that to a restricted tag. There are many other ways to ingest. One of the other interesting, cool ways to do ingest from our system is to invite an external contributor, somebody who doesn't have access to the system, to make a contribution. Now, the way we do that is pretty simple. We send them an email. They open a secure, they get that email, they open a link, they drag and drop files in just like you just saw. They see that process. And then once they hit submit, they actually get an email receipt and I get notified. So for example, if I see here on August 3rd, Isaiah made a submission to me, I can go in here and look. I've actually ingested almost all of the submission he made, but you can see the physical structure here of what he submitted. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to bring in one of his assets, this one right here, because I could bring the whole collection in. I can just bring one in. I'm just going to go ahead and save this here. And I am going to put this into that top level of galleries, libraries, and museums, and I'm just going to move it. So see how quickly, because it was already ingested, it's already been characterized, it's already been virus checked, all those things have already happened. I easily can move it. Now, once I move it, it's set to a permission of submitted. And so in addition to these, we have several other ingest mechanisms that, again, are simple and straightforward. I can give you a sense of how easy those are as this redraws. You can see here that I can go ahead and upload a single file. I can upload an entire folder of files. And if I want to, I can upload folders with metadata in them using one of these easy templates. Or if I want to use a more advanced template structure, I can upload data using a very straightforward metadata structure called OPEX. The bottom line is we have a very varied number of ingest mechanisms so that there's the right ingest mechanism for the right level of technology and experience for a user. So if we go in here now and we go look at that galleries of libraries and museums, we'll now see that asset and we could immediately move that asset into the right folder. And it's this one right here. Can expand it out. And actually, let's look at this in the Expert UI for a second, just to show you how easy it is to move it from anywhere to anywhere. Let's take this galleries. We'll expand it down. We'll go into our library and journal, and I want to move that into box 7. So I go into our library journal, and I'm instantaneously going, I go here, and I'm immediately going to move it right to box 7. Notice it already made the thumbnail for me, and I can put that wherever I want to right within it. And all of my options, everything I do is going to be audited. So now, the last thing I want to make sure we show you is that it's super easy and intuitive to work with our access controls, our role-based access controls. So let's go back into the library journal and let's look at an asset and show you what, I showed you how we added one of those tags, but let's look at how security tags actually work. So if I come in here and I go to security tags and roles, I can select a security tag and then I assign roles to it, and then I assign users to those roles. So that, I know that sounds a little confusing. Let's just take an example. So I created a tag called finance. right? If I apply that tag to an asset, then anybody who belongs to the role of finance will be able to read the metadata and read the content, but they won't be able to do any of these other important actions. And if somebody belongs to the role of finance admin, they'll be able to do this. But you can see if another user belongs to any of these other groups, then they won't be able to see the asset. They won't be able to do anything with it. It won't be grayed out or anything. It just will not show up. And that's really important because your collections, many of them are going to be private and you're going to use them for internal, and some of them are going to be public. And in the case of those that are going to be public, those you're probably going to want to make available for your DAM system, such as AM Cortex. All right, now let's talk about the derivative process, because I think that's equally important. So now that we've looked at some of these assets, let's take a look at how easy it is for us to go ahead and take these assets, which we're going to choose to make public, and create the derivative files that are most appropriate for use in our DAM system for web publishing. So we've got a couple of assets here that we're going to go look at in our Cortex system. We've got this one here and this one here. And just to remind you real quickly some of the properties of this one. So here you can see that this is an MP4, but more importantly, it's a very specific type of MP4, this FMT 199. So what's great about this is our system gives you a couple of different options, right? You can actually come in here and look at all the rule sets that we've created by default for you for migrating and normalizing and making them accessible for utilization for things like AM Cortex. You can see there's a whole bunch of video transmission migration rules here. We can show you all the details. But more importantly, from here, you can actually go in, and if you decide you want to do a particular one, you can start that representation. Now, you can do this at the asset level. You can do it at the folder level. It's very flexible and very easy to do. So the bottom line is, once you've set the permissions, you can create the content at the resolution you need. In a lot of cases, we're going to make that representation lighter weight, more appropriate for use in your DAM system like AM Cortex, rather than that heavyweight preservation copy. We can show you an example of this real quick. For example, we have a JP2 file in here, which was, way too heavy for use in some kind of a DAM system. So I can show you one of those lightweight originals. So here you could see this JP2000, which is like 2 megs, and the lightweight JPEG we created is only 50 KB. So anyway, so let's go back to that asset that we were talking about. In this case, it was a video. This one right here. And now that this video has been created into a lighter weight representation, we are ready to share that to AM Cortex for web publication.
Thank you, Mike. And once these derivative files are in Cortex, are pushed into Cortex from Preservica, you have the opportunity to enhance the metadata, should you wish to. So we move on to the managed and enhanced description we see on this sort of workflow diagram on the AM Cortex side. So Cortex supports customizable metadata, and this is at asset level, at section levels, think chapter in a large bound volume, for example, or at item level or individual file level. And you can overwrite metadata, you can batch edit in the Cortex platform, or you can catalog in platform, individually catalog. Cortex also features, for example, one-click auto transcription. So at this point, you can also transcribe all your assets if you wish to, and that's whether they comprise printed material, whether they're handwritten manuscript, or whether they're audio or video files. So you can auto-transcribe, you can also edit that transcription within the platform as well. So lots of enhancements that you can make there to the metadata and the descriptive information itself. You can also, as we move on round the workflow diagram, you can also contextualize your assets. So you can add any contextual information, supporting essays. It's something that we introduced to AM collections, for example. And you can create multiple discovery pathways for end users by making use of some of the in-platform features that are available in Cortex, and these include timelines, for example, or exhibitions. So you don't need to go to any external software if you want to create an exhibit, for example. You can also create extended exhibits by making use of the static content pages. So you can create that site navigation and structure yourself with very easy means using the Cortex CMS. And finally, you can apply styling and download and display configuration in Cortex as well. And you can also ensure your site's accessible. All Cortex sites can be WCAG 2.1AA compliant. So you can, I suppose the final point here as well is, as we move round to the display and discovery element of the workflow diagram, is that you can make all your material easily discoverable. And this is largely by making full text search possible across your metadata, your transcriptions, as we've discussed, and static content as well. And if you wish to, you can restrict access to materials that you publish to the site as well. Rich can run through some of what I've just spoken of in some detail here as well. So we'll move on to his description through this part of the workflow diagram.
I'd now like to take you through the various elements of the Cortex platform that will allow you to manage your assets and to enhance the associated metadata and transcripts. So in this example periodical here, you can see that visitors to this Cortex site are provided with a rich range of metadata at various levels. The document here is a periodical volume. Each double page is presented as an image with metadata available and navigation above the document viewer, and then sections are used here to differentiate each issue within the periodical. Metadata can be managed, created, and presented at this section level 2, and we've got these navigation options here above the document viewer. I can now show you how these fields are configured in the Digital Asset Manager with various field type options available to you. You'll be able to see here that in addition to my standard fields, I've also defined various groups of fields that can be used for whichever collections and assets that I need. And it's very easy to add additional fields here as well, perhaps using a metadata standard like Dublin Core or individually. And then very briefly here, I'll just show you where you would create and manage your control vocabularies for use across your collections too. I'm now going to take you back to our periodical, but this time we're in the Digital Asset Manager. Here you can see how I can edit each of the metadata fields that I've specified, including my controlled vocabularies. And as I go down through this pane on the left-hand side, updating these various different field groups, you'll also be able to see the additional field groups I specified for this document here as well. On the right-hand side of my screen here, you'll also be able to see the individual images from this document, which I can choose and organize. And just here, you can see how I can select these and add these to the sections I've already shown you on the published website. Of course, as well as managing metadata at this individual document level, I also want to show you options available for batch editing, making in-platform cataloging straightforward for large collections of documents and assets. So I simply select the groups of assets that I'd like to update and go through this batch edit process. So here, all of those metadata fields I've configured as being applicable to this particular set of assets are available, and I can go through and selectively update whichever entries I need to give me full control over my metadata for these assets, and a really easy method to do this for large numbers of documents at the same time. In a second, I'll now take you back to that table of available assets just to show you some of the transcription options that are available. So I can run any number of these documents through various processes. I can select the documents, and then up here I've got an option to run an OCR process, a handwritten text recognition process, and an AV transcription process as well for my audio and video assets. So if I select one of these, you can then see enhanced options available, all of which are going to add great discoverability options to these assets, because these transcripts will be fully searchable and discoverable on your published site. And now I'll take you through one specific example. So we've got an oral history here. Once a transcript has been generated, it's then simply attached and associated with the asset with nothing more that you need to do. But of course, if there are any tweaks that you need to make, any changes, any edits, you can do so. And I just wanted to show you here, going into the detail, I can show you I have full control over this data, can edit just as I need. I hope that's given a bit of a flavour of the options available for enhancing the metadata, the description and the transcripts associated with your documents and assets, all of which can then be stored with your documents and selectively presented to your site for display and discovery. In this next section, I'd now like to show you some of the options that we have available for creating engaging content pages, displays and contextual assets for your collections. So first, I'll just go into one of my existing pages here. So Cortex allows you to manage these content pages by adding content items, and it will allow you to insert any combination and any ordering of these various content items that you like, which will really enable you to present your information in the way that you need to. One example of a content item is this timeline here. So if I select a timeline and add it to my page, I can then use an editing window like this one to configure exactly how I want that to look. And if I take you through to my published site now, you can see this wonderful, engaging timeline of my content I've curated, including images and text entries, links out to more information, and links to specific assets in my collection as well. So it's a really lovely, engaging way to tell the story of some of your content. I'd now just like to use the search functionality quickly, just to show you another tool that we've got available for creating these wonderful additional contextual assets for your websites. So if I go back to the top and perform a search here, I will show you our exhibition feature. So here, I'm going to be searching the full site. I'm searching the published assets and documents, as well as the static pages themselves. So if I go through to the second tab on the search results screen, you'll see in just a second, you'll be able to see these static content page results. And the first one of those will be the exhibition that I want to show you. The first thing you'll see if I click into the exhibition are the highlighted hits from that search, showing me why this has been presented to me. And then now that we're in the exhibition, you can just see this wonderful curated gallery of a small number of assets I've chosen to present in this really engaging visual manner, providing again just a lovely visual entry point to your collections. So now we've got your collections with enhanced metadata, with descriptions and transcripts alongside these lovely exhibitions and timelines and informative pages. And now I just want to show you how all of this comes together into fantastic published websites for display and discovery. So first of all, worth mentioning that you can manage multiple sites. So perhaps you need different sites for different audiences or purposes or collections. So all of these can be managed within the same tool with the same digital asset manager. There are then extensive options available to you, which will allow you to build a site that looks the way that you want and that fits with your brand and your color schemes and your visual identity. So here you can see I can select and fine tune exactly which colors are going to be used throughout my website. On the next tab, you'll also see, as you'd expect, customization options for the fonts I want to use as well. So at the top, I've got some pre-selected options, or I can choose to customize these if I'd like to, as well as the heading size and weight and other aspects here to really allow me to get the look and feel of my site exactly how I'd like it. The masthead will appear at the top of all of my pages, and I can select logos and banners and colors and strap lines to really make this look the way I want. And then if I continue through this customization journey, I can also fine tune the navigation and the colors used in the navigation bar as well. And then the final element that appears on this page template throughout the website will be the footer. So again, here, lots of options and customization available to present exactly the information that I want to in the footer of my website. I'm just going to go back now. I'd like to highlight the focus color on this first tab, the orange that's been selected, which you'll see in just a second down here. So I want to show you this on the published site, and you'll be able to see this orange color being used as part of the keyboard navigation functionality. So Cortex provides a range of tools for creating accessible websites. And as I say, this orange is being used here for the keyboard navigation to highlight exactly where we are. As part of this accessibility tooling, there are of course other tools and options available as well. So for example, screen reader compatibility too. I'll now also just give a very brief view of some of the vast range of customization options that are available for defining what's presented to my site visitors and how they can search and engage with my content. So here, I can select exactly the sidebar filters that are going to be visible, the ordering, the date formats, the different fields that are going to be searchable by my site visitors. I've got searching options available, sorting options, and just below that in a second, we've got the options for the metadata that I'd like to see presented in different areas of the site as well. So really a vast range of customization options I can use to fine tune and present in a way that makes sense for my content. You can see here a large number of metadata fields have been created, and I can select from these showing exactly the elements I'd like to display and make available. I can choose whether or not to show the metadata and at which levels, and the options for download as well, whether I want site visitors to be able to download the metadata or perhaps the files or the transcripts. And again here, further options for display of metadata in different areas of the site as well, again with a long list of options to choose from. So you really can present whatever it is that you think is going to be valuable and useful for your site visitors. And again, just to call out here, we've got various different levels of metadata here as well. So we've got the document level metadata, but also section level and image level as well. So you can really store that data at whatever level in the hierarchy makes most sense for your collections. As well as these global search and display options, I'd also just like to close this and show you a specific example of a page that can be further customized. So if I go back to my site manager, I will find a particular list page to show you. So if we select perhaps the periodical list page, because we've just been looking at these periodicals, I'll go in here and I will show you how I can choose for this particular collection exactly how I'd like to see these assets presented. So here you'll see a lot of very similar options to the ones we just looked at, just to show you really can delve in and fine tune this however you would like and in whatever specific way you'd like to present these individual collections. So again, the sorting options, the filtering options, the display options, all configurable here. And if I go through to the front end side, you'll be able to see how these customization options are then used to present the results to my site visitors. So really these options are yours to do whatever you'd like with to showcase the content in a way that makes most sense. So here you can see I've had control over the filter options, the search options, the metadata that's being displayed, the ordering, all fully customized. Now let's go back to this periodical here, and I just want to show you again, we've got some of the summary metadata here. We've got the contents that have been configured. We've got a transcript that's been generated automatically and is now fully searchable, and the sections and the pages that can be used to navigate this complex asset. And we've got various options here below the asset itself as well. You've got the IIIF viewer and manifest options, download options, bookmark options, and here the metadata as configured for the document level, image level, and that section level as well. And now I'd just like to show you how this all comes together in the search functionality. So we've had a quick look at this already, but again, if I perform a quick search here, you'll be able to see that I get results for both my collections, assets and documents, but also for the static content. And here you'll also be able to see I can choose what I'm searching. I can either search the metadata records, but I can also choose to search those fantastic full text transcripts as well. So I can filter my results by type, and really you can hopefully now see how all of these options come together to make that content really discoverable for your site visitors. And finally, there's one more piece I wanted to show you. So we know that sometimes you'll need to restrict access to certain assets and certain documents. Perhaps there are donor or copyright restrictions, or maybe certain assets are relevant only to members of your institution. So I wanted to show you here, we've also got a full range of access controls available to you, which can be applied to restrict access to these assets to certain accounts or IP ranges as you might need.
Okay, so all of that additional data that you've created about your assets in AM Cortex can then be fed back to Preservica through webhooks to ensure that you are preserving a full record of that asset over a given time. And then once that data is shared to Preservica, we then continue to manage and describe those assets if you need to. And finally, your assets will be continually protected and preserved through active digital preservation. So we'll just finish with a final demo video from Mike on those final 2 steps of the workflow.
All right, the next step we're going to show in this process is we're going to show how easy it is to manage and describe metadata as it's coming back from our digital asset management partner, AM Cortex. So here we're going to take a look at that asset that we looked at previously, but now we've received that information, that descriptive information back via what you would call APIs or webhooks. So let's click on that video. We can see it there. And if I look at it, now you can see the title's been updated, all of this metadata has been passed, and this is what you would call sort of the descriptive metadata. And if I go into our expert UI, you can actually see that we've passed some value pairs as well. And those custom value pairs can be passed as well this way. Now let's take a look at how easy it is once that's been passed. If you want to continue to add metadata, which of course could be passed either way. You could add it just into Preservica or pass it back forward to Quartex via, again, those APIs or webhooks. So I'm going to come in here and decide, hey, you know what I really want to do? I want to update. I'm going to edit, and I want to put in a language. So I'm going to click on language, and I use English a lot, so it automatically shows up for me, and I'm going to hit save. And you will notice that it's immediately populated. So simple, straightforward, and easy. Now, what about bulk metadata editing? Well, we have a workflow in this, which is a multi-step process, but I want to show you how easy it is in the expert UI as well. So if I go up a level and I just click these two assets, I can right-click, say bulk edit metadata. I can choose, in this case, to say I want to update the date. And I'm going to say 1921, and I'm going to apply it to all, and just say, go ahead and apply it, and that workflow will run. Takes a few seconds, and now I've instantly updated all of that metadata, and as you saw in that checkbox, it's recursive. So we can apply multiple, we can replace, we can update, we can clear. Those are all easy processes, and I can do that on one asset or 100,000 assets. All right, now let's look at Preservica's patent pending technology called active digital preservation. When we say active digital preservation, that's really all about a couple of different things. It's about the process which you saw upon ingest of doing all of those important things like characterizing, like virus checking, fixity checking, all of those things at the beginning, but it's about continuing to do that moving forward for days, weeks, months, and years. So let's take a look at one of these assets and see what we mean by that. So let's go in here. Let's take one of those assets. Let's look at the properties. And you can see that we've got a preserved original and we've got an access copy. So for this preserved original, you can see we ran a hash on it, and we are continuing to run integrity checks on it. Notice we brought it into S3, and then we pushed it down to Glacier because it's a preservation copy. We're not going to need it. And notice we're checking both locations in case it's been rehydrated. And so we continue to make sure that where we've written all three copies of it to three different data centers, that this file hasn't changed one bit. And if any of the copies change by one or more bits, we immediately self-heal them back. So you don't ever have to worry about that file being anything but the original file that you put in on day one. But it's also important to note that we do the same thing on the access file. And the reason why is that access files oftentimes are a lossier file format like JPEG. But because we apply the same process here, you don't have to worry about your JPEG degrading over time. So this is one component of active digital preservation that would be making sure that the file remains exactly true as it was on day one for days, months, or years, or even decades. The second thing that's really important to understand about active digital preservation, which is patent pending, is the fact that because we've run this deep characterization, we understand the PUID, not just a JPEG. In this case, you can see that this asset is a JPEG 1.01, that we constantly are scanning these and understanding that there are changes. So if, for example, a JPEG 1.01 becomes an obsolete file format, we'll have rules that we roll out monthly or every other month, which would now know that we now need to update that to a new, more appropriate file format. And we'll run those rules in the background so you don't have to worry about it. And so we update those from the Pronom registry and from particular vendors of software. So you don't have to worry about your software, your particular files becoming obsolete, because we'll automatically migrate them to the most accessible file format. And that includes if there's rendering capabilities for new files, we'll do that as well. So when you take all that into consideration, that's why we at Preservica think we stand alone with our active digital preservation.
Okay, so that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation today. I'll ask Martin, Rich, and Mike to join me on camera. And we see that there's been a lot of great questions coming in through the question feature, so thank you for submitting those. We likely will not have time to cover everything today. We're going to cover as many as we can. We will, after the session, go through all the questions you've submitted, though, and as part of a follow-up email, we'll include responses to the full list of Q&A that you've submitted. So again, if you have a question, submit it. Even if we're not able to answer it right now, we'll do our best to get back to you and the rest of the community about that. So let's start with this question. Are both the Cortex and Preservica functions a fully hosted solution, or does an organization need to access a local infrastructure to run it? Who wants to take that one?
Fully hosted SaaS solution. Yeah, pretty easy.
Yep, great. Both, that is definitely the case. All right, so next question. I understand that you can have items stored in Preservica that do not get pulled into Cortex, but can you also do the reverse in cases of less important content that does not lead the long-term digital preservation applied? Can you ingest into Cortex? Martin or Rich?
Answer that one if you like. Yeah, great question. And the answer is you'll find a lot of flexibility with both of the platforms. So yes, with Cortex, you can individually import assets, you can bulk import assets, and we've also got integrations with other platforms as well. So lots of options available to you there.
Okay, great. Next question, is AM Cortex intended to replace the Universal Access module within Preservica? Will there be further development of UA, or will existing customers be directed to using AM Cortex instead?
Sure, I'll take that one. So I think it's more a matter of slightly different use cases. UA is great for public access and private access. And I think that you'll see some changes to that, as well as our next generation public portal. And I think that it has its strengths and weaknesses. And I think you see the value of Cortex as well. So I think you'll see them both.
Great. So maybe just one more question and then we'll wrap it up. So a question about Rich's demo. If there are metadata fields that aren't included in the options, are we able to request to have something added as an option? For instance, I work for the archive of a printing cooperative and we record the printer of each piece separate from the artist. Thank you. Rich?
Thank you. Yeah, you won't actually need to request anything at all. You've got full control over that yourself. So you can create whatever metadata fields you would like, and you can choose to which assets and which collections they'll be relevant as well. So that's all achievable by you.
Great. All right, I think that does bring us to the end of our allotment for Q&A. Again, we will get back to you with those questions, and I'll turn it over to Martin to talk you through next steps.
Well, I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone who joined us today, really, and a very quick reminder to check out the articles detailed on slide 4, which Katie introduced at the beginning of the webinar. And also do look at the links provided here on our final slide. There's lots of information here about both organizations and what we do. So there may be some of the answers to the questions we haven't had time for today, but as Katie said, we will endeavor to get back to everyone with responses to all the other questions we've received. And if you would like to have a chat about how Cortex and Preservica together can work for you, any details around functionality or pricing, then do please click on the Schedule a Consultation link that you'll see on this slide here. So thanks again, and back to Joshua just to wrap things up for today.
Awesome. Thanks, Martin. All right, everybody. thanks again for attending today. We just wanted to give a quick reminder that we do record all of our webcasts. So if you missed any part of today's presentation and you'd like to go back and watch it, the on-demand recording should be available to watch in a few hours. You can use the same link that you used today. We also send you a thank you email tomorrow that'll have that link in there. And yeah, be sure to check out all of our other webcasts, both the ones we have coming up, as well as our archived on-demand webcasts, plus our online courses and our virtual events. And you can find all these at the events and professional development section over there at libraryjournal.com. So go and check those out. There's lots of great content over there. Thanks again for attending today. Thank you to Martin, Kate, Rich, Mike for your presentations. And yeah, we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.